When I walked in the door 5.5 years ago, I got a call within the first few days from a member of our association who said, "Do you know what a crisis we have? Do you know how many plumbers are about to retire? Do you know how many electricians are about to retire? I can't find anyone to do drywall." And I said, "Hi, I'm Amy. I'm new. Tell me about this."
Welcome to the Builder Straight Talk podcast with your host, Michael Creasa. Get the unfiltered truth from the trenches of construction, real estate, and funding. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.
Every builder has an entire team standing behind them. Trades, suppliers, engineers, designers, manufacturers, lenders, inspectors, the list goes on. It takes an entire community to build a single home. But while builders are busy building, looming in the background are conversations and decisions most builders simply don't have time to follow. Building codes, zoning regulations, permitting, workforce development, housing policy, advocacy, decisions being made in boardrooms, committee meetings, and city halls. Decisions that can shape the future of every builder's business, all of which raises a simple question. Who's making sure the builder's voice is being heard? My guest today has dedicated her career to answering that question. Aimee Bertrand, CEO of the Greater Houston Builders Association. In this conversation, you'll discover why advocacy is every bit as important as craftsmanship, how strong builders associations help shape the future of home building, why workforce development may be the one greatest challenge our industry faces, and why, when builders come together, their collective voice can accomplish so much more than any one builder ever could. If you've ever wondered who's advocating for the future of home building, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Hello, my name is Michael Creasa, and this is Builder Straight Talk. Our mission is simple, to help you build a better business, because we know a great business starts with sound capital. And speaking of great business, pretty please give us a like, comment, and share, because that simple action with your mouse will get this through the algorithms so more, I can't even say the word, so more builders like you can discover Builder Straight Talk. So once again, pretty please subscribe, like, and share. And without further ado, let's jump into this conversation with Aimee. I know you'll enjoy it. Dear Aimee, welcome to the call. I am so happy to have you here. I know how busy you are running all things Texas. So first of all, thanks for taking the time out today.
No, thank you for having me.
And for the people that don't know who you are, let's do a bit of the, we'll call it the elevator pitch. We're on the 10th floor heading down to the lobby for a beer. Tell me what it is that you're doing right now and a little bit about your backstory.
Sure. My name's Aimee Bertrand. I serve as CEO for the Greater Houston Builders Association in beautiful Houston, Texas. I keep trying to get us to change our name to the Greatest Houston Builders Association, but keep being reminded we're the only one. But we represent home builders, remodelers, developers, and then any of our trade and service vendor partners who help make Houston a great place to live. And not just Houston, but the entire kind of Gulf Coast region of Texas. So we have a 12 county service territory, and our members do everything you can think of that goes along with home building, remodeling, and development to help make Houston great.
There are so many different facets that I want to talk about. What's happening in Texas, what you do. And basically, you're in the control tower. It's like we're at one of the busiest airports in the world, and you get to see the flights coming, going. But then when you look down on your radar, you can see almost what's coming in the future. So many things that I want to unpack. But the first thing, talk about Aimee once upon a time before construction. Let's take you right back to as a kid. What was the turn in the road that took you from all things into here you are today in building?
I think the through line in my entire career and my life has been helping people to connect. I grew up with a mom that was completely deaf, but had hearing support through a cochlear implant. But that also meant that I was often her translator growing up. I was the big sister to my little sister, and I translated what she had to say to my parents. And then I also was trying to help buffer out in the world. And so I think everything I've done, whether it was going to journalism school at the University of Mississippi or working at the state capitol in Mississippi, working at city council in Houston, has always been about communicating with lots of external and internal audiences, but also playing that translator between, I think this is what we need and what that policy ends up actually being, or working on behalf of the apartment association to say, this is the technical information. Let's make it make sense for what you're actually trying to achieve as a legislator, as a local city council person.
So working with the deaf, and I'm sure there's all kinds of things that you've experienced that help you working with your mom that you're using today. You get to university and you're studying journalism.
Mhm.
Am I right so far? So
Correct.
where's the lane change that brought you into, for lack of a better word, governance and politics?
So, totally accidental in every way. I graduated a little bit early from college, but didn't want to leave the last semester of my senior year and all of my friends and my sister who was still there. So, I found a job there in Mississippi at the state capitol. Turns out everybody needs somebody who can write and who can communicate, whether it's in politics or anywhere else. And so I accidentally worked for the state legislature of Mississippi, kinda loved it, and then came back home and was looking for jobs, as one does after finishing school, and my local city council member knew that I could write and needed somebody who could help her out, and that turned into a press secretary job, and then that turned into becoming her chief of staff and led to some opportunities to work for a local trade association. So the rest is history.
Holy jumping! This is like the West Wing. It's just like an an ascension, from one to the other. Oh, and now you're, sitting in the throne of all things. Let's give this a bit of context, Amy. Greater Houston Association, you're probably one of the largest in the U.S. So in terms of what you do, your position, like tell us what entails what you do. You come in the morning, you pour coffee, people come in, they bow at your feet. What happens next?
Not quite that, but, so here at GHBA, we provide events and meetings and places to connect and advocacy on behalf of our members. So day to day, a lot of what we're doing is convening our members or hosting events that create opportunities for that connection, or we're having meetings to talk through issues that impact the day to day and the bottom line for our builders. And so I come in the morning. I might be picking up trash on my way in because we have a beautiful facility here, and I want to make sure that our members know it's being well cared for. I supervise our team of 14 staff members, which is pretty large across the country. That is very enviable, but that also means we have the resources we need to put on more than 200 events and meetings throughout the year, as well as provide the programming that our members require of us.
Great, Jim. It sounds like you share the same philosophy as Mayor Giuliani had when he was running New York. Oh, seriously. For them, when he was trying to revitalize the city, he
Mhm.
said, okay, here's the grand picture of things that need to be done. But we have to start with the little things. Like you said, picking up trash, fixing broken windows, the subway cars. Every morning they would repaint them because people were spraying on graffiti. And for him, it was if we don't address this now, it's like a cancer that spreads. And if we give permission to the little things, which are little dragons, to manifest, they become bigger dragons. So it seems like you've taken a page out of his playbook.
I've never thought of it that way, but I really do feel like if we show respect for our community, whether that's the people or the places, we really get that respect back and our
Yeah.
organization becomes more and more respected than it already is.
So just to pat myself on the back here, girlfriend, you're not the only one that can write copy. So there you go. Now, when I think Texas, and the backstory is, humble little Canadian on the corner of Lost and Nowhere. I did an interview with Jim Tobin that got me onto the radar of TAB, the Texas Association. Then I got introduced to you by our, favorite friend that we all know and love, Jeannie Conger. And by the way, I got it right here. Jeannie Conger says Amy is a badass. So um, that's coming directly from her, not me.
Right
I
back
would never
at her.
swear. Yeah. And I've been to several of the events, governance, and I gotta say there's something in the water in Texas. I've probably met hundreds of people so far that have been associated with the association. and they've all been awesome, like truly, truly awesome. And when I think of the challenges that you're enduring in Texas, is it fair to say before we start unpacking that, and I'm blowing so much smoke into your ear here, could we say that you guys are like the canary in the coal mine? Because whatever happens in Texas is probably months ahead of what's going to unfold in the rest of the US?
From a building and development standpoint, I think that's probably true. From a regulatory standpoint, we're often looking to either coast to see what bad idea might make its way to Texas and potentially impact the industry in a way that's unintended in our community.
You're in a position of leadership, and I asked this question to Scott Norman, the CEO of Tab. I said, "Have you ever been in a room and you feel like you're the smartest person there? As a matter of fact, you know you're the smartest person there, and that there's a concept that to you seems so easy to comprehend, yet the rest of the children running around don't get it." Has there ever been a moment like that from where you're sitting in leadership, or is that a daily thing?
Well, I'll say I don't know that I ever think I'm the smartest person in the room, period, especially when it comes to home building, because though I've lived in homes, though I've seen a home as a purchaser built from the ground up, I swing a hammer and I'm not building a home. I'm doing something on a much smaller scale. So I know that from a technical expertise side of things, I know I am not the smartest in the room. When it comes to process and policy development, I think sometimes what I bring to the table is the idea that logic doesn't always rule the day and that everybody needs to find a win. And sometimes that seems very obvious to me, but may not always seem obvious to somebody who's not used to trying to hash out policy in real time.
When you said swinging the hammer, I just had visions of you with a gavel trying to wave people out of your office
A
and getting
different
them to
hammer.
conform, conforming to Amy's will, my iron fist. But it brings up the question then, and women in construction. I was interviewing an author of a book, who wrote a book, and I'm not going to say who or the title because that'll get me skewered. But the premise was that construction, and in her own words, is a male dominated male dominated profession. And immediately, I don't know why, because this is the way Michael's brain works. It's on kin with Homer Simpson, I think, in pictures. Dominated profession. I thought of the ocean and fish. And my response to her is like, okay, so what you're basically saying, it's like being in the ocean and you're complaining that it's a body of water dominated by fish because that's where fish live. Construction predominantly is men because they're the ones that are willing to do dangerous jobs, relocate, work in like hazardous conditions, so on and so on. And my point to her was it's not like there's a band of maniacal, uh, benevolent plumbers or framers that are trying to keep women out of the profession. To me, it's about shining a light on bringing out the best in everybody. So if I'm hiring somebody, I
Mhm.
want somebody that can do the job. I'm hiring based on merit, right? And construction, like the heavy manual labor part, isn't for everybody. And I'm not saying just for women, even for men. If I'm a frail, 120 pounds and I can't lift a 50-pound sack, I'm of no use on a construction site. But there's other things I can be doing. So I'm kind of making a short story long here, Amy. Have you found any pushback for being a woman trying to navigate in a field that this author said is predominantly occupied by men?
So I haven't. And I think here in Houston, especially, we've embraced women at the leadership level for the Greater Houston Builders Association for a really long time. And I'm lucky that my last two predecessors both had were women and both came out of the government affairs space, and they probably blazed a lot of trails for me. But I think locally here in Houston, when it comes to the building and construction side of things, we have a really robust bench when it comes to women in the industry, both who have succeeded and proven themselves and who are on their way up. We started a professional women in building council here in Houston 3 years ago, And right out of the gate, we had almost 300 members. We were the largest in the country. That settled back down to a little more reasonable place, but we're still well over 200 members. We're in the largest category you can get. And every year we do an event we call Ladies Who Lead, and we bring 3 to 5 women who have succeeded and are really at the top of their class or in the C-suite across our industry, whether they're remodelers, associate members, those who provide vendor or services or products, or on the development side or on the home building side. And these women, every year, I am blown away and have some new little epiphany about how women are working in this industry and how they're succeeding. And I think there's a lot of room for that. And what I heard when we started our council was women project managers really are something, especially that custom builders and remodelers look to help not only keep their processes on time and efficient and on budget, but also working with clients in a way that is so important in our local industry.
We know that right now labor is a challenge. For every 5 people that are retiring, only 1 is filling in the gap, and which creates a crisis, if you will, because we need more labor. What are you doing, and maybe this isn't a fair question, but as an association, how are you trying to attract new talent into the pool, and not specifically just for the trades, but into the profession in general?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked this question, Michael, because this has become my little passion over the past few years. When I walked in the door 5.5 years ago, I got a call within the first few days from a member of our association who said, "Do you know what a crisis we have? Do you know how many plumbers are about to retire? Do you know how many electricians are about to retire? I can't find anyone to do drywall." And I said, "Hi, I'm Amy. I'm new. Tell me about this." And that gentleman ended up becoming our first workforce committee chair and now is our workforce chair emeritus. But we started really building the plane as we were flying in creating opportunities for working with our local workforce partners, finding those workforce partners, trying to bring students in to see what opportunities there are. So we do a few things. We partner with local school districts and help educate them on what our members are hiring for, whether that's at the big production builders who need everything from accountants to project managers to the back end HR folks, or if it's the trade partners, the electricians, the plumbers, the HVAC, the drywallers, the roofers, the tilers, all of those things that we know we need to build a home. We're partnering with those local school districts. We encourage them to use the Home Builders Institute curriculum, which is the only residential construction curriculum out there. And it's supported heavily by the National Association of Home Builders. We help pay for them to put that curriculum into their schools the first year and to train their educators. And then we also invite those students to come out to our annual expo. We have a B2B trade show where our pest control people and our masons and our fireplace installers, and you name it, if it goes into a house, there's probably somebody at this expo that is selling to builders and remodelers. And so we bring those students out. We give them a hard hat that says GHBA on it and is white. So they're getting like a white hat because we feel like home builders have the white hat. They're building homes. And we let them really see what all these opportunities look like, talk to people about how they got their start in the industry, hear about what kind of cool truck they're driving, but really try and get them excited before they're ever in a place to go to a trade school or start beginning that education that will really lead them to selfishly become a member of my association one day and build some houses.
When we first started this interview, you were lighting up like a Christmas tree, and I thought it was because of me. We get to spend time together. When I asked you this question about workforce and bringing the younger people in, you lit up even more.
I
So
love
what
it.
is it? What is it? So yeah, it's easy to say I love it. I love peanut butter ice cream. But what is it? What is it specifically, Amy, that just lights you up about this? Why is it so important for you?
I feel like these students are at a point when they have the opportunity to really make decisions that will change their lives. And we work with people who are mid-career, who are making a change and want to do something with their hands. But the fact that this is not some intangible career path, right? This is something that our members tell me often. They drive their kids by that street that they named, or by that lot that they cleared, or by that home that their dad built years ago. It's something meaningful and tangible, and I think people today, and I might be getting too philosophical here, are looking for that meaning and looking for the opportunity to be part of community. And home building is such a very direct way of being a part of our community and our community's future.
It's funny you say community. I was just listening to an interview today. Well, it wasn't an interview, monologue. The guy was talking about the history of CrossFit,
Mm.
the concept that just swept the
Mhm.
nation. And he said one of the things that really made it work is the guy who put it together. I can't think of his name right now, but he was a contrarian. So the industry is going this way. He said, "Nope, I'm going this way." The consensus is X. Nope, I'm doing Y. So everything was in the opposite direction. But the one thing that really stood out was one of the key principles that made it work was this aspect of community, because people were looking for other people that they could train with, and training was actually, let's call it, how do I say it? Training was in the background. The real draw was community getting together, sharing stories, and it just happened to be overthrowing a bar in the air or doing squats or whatever. And that was one of the key things, drivers that made them so successful, was that aspect of community. To your point, what I'm seeing a lack of, especially in education and with our younger people right now, they're being sold a bill of goods that if you don't go and get a university degree, you are not going to be able to compete. You will not be successful, quote unquote, whatever success means. And I feel like they've been ripped off, because you go to university, and I'm not bashing universities, but I am. If you don't know why you're there, it's like going to the mall. I'm going there specifically because I want to buy a pair of running shoes, let's say. But if I go there idly because I'm spending time, I'll end up buying worthless stuff that I don't need.
Mhm.
University, I look at, is kind of the same thing. Unless I have a distinctive career path of where I'm going from point A to point B, I'm going to graduate with a degree that means nothing, in debt, live in my parents' basement. I won't have enough money to date Betty Sue, who I met at school, let alone the confidence to do so. If I'm not dating, we're not going to get married. If we're not married, we're not going to have kids. And ultimately, if we don't have kids, we're not going to buy a house. Versus the people that you're trying to address, that demographic, if you will, these are kids that are going to learn a trade as they're going through school. When they graduate, there is a job on a silver platter waiting for them, and they're graduating not in debt, but cash positive. And if they play their cards right, 5, 6 years down the road, it's not them that's turning a screw or running electrical cable. They're the guy that now owns, or the gal that owns the company, and people are working for them. I don't see that kind of scalable opportunity in any other profession.
Well, I think really you're right there that there's opportunity that doesn't involve the 4-year degree track or beyond. But there are also opportunities in our industry for people to shift and maybe take that architecture degree and turn it into building homes of their own, or to take that landscape design opportunity and turn it into community building. And we see that quite a lot. We partner with some of our 4-year and 2-year institutions in our region to help support that type of education if that's what folks are looking for. But we also have those CTE, career and technical education training programs that are really taking hold in the high schools and even at the post secondary level to help take people to the next step. I think what we're seeing a lot of demand for is exactly what you were talking about, the entrepreneurship side of things. And really, the trades are an amazing path to entrepreneurship. Working for a big production builder is a great path that many of our members have followed to get into owning a home building business of their own. But there's that lack of how do I get from A to B? if my education is in tile setting, if my education is in cabinet building, how do I turn that into a full-time business of my own that actually supports me, my family, and employees? And that's where we're partnering with some of our regional entities to really try to develop that curriculum for not only how do we recover as a community after a disaster, but how do we build our trade bench so that people aren't looking to plumbers from out of town when something happens to our community, that we have the resources we need to be able to recover and continue to grow and build. And especially with our aging housing stock in the Houston area, we absolutely don't have enough capacity to do the kind of remodeling that we need to be able to do over the next several years.
A few months back, I was at the leadership event that was outside of Austin at that wonderful resort whose name, The Pines, I think, Lost Pines?
Mhm.
Is that what it's called?
It is.
And I I had the privilege of meeting this young plumber, and I think he was a 3rd or 4th generation plumber. And his business is just rocking on all 8 cylinders. And he said, there was something missing. And that missing piece was I need to give back to the community, which is inspire other people to be able to follow what I've done because I'm living my dream. He says, I love what I do. I'm getting paid a ridiculous amount of money for what I do. And he wanted to share that, and to me, that was so fulfilling because he's a young fart. He's probably 27, 28, give or take. Like, to me, everybody's young, right?
Yes.
Um,
That
I've
is
got
young.
Moses. Yeah, I've got Moses on speed dial, but it warmed my heart to think, here's this generation that realizes, A, there is a path forward to success. B, it's a responsibility, but one that I honor to be able to give back, to inspire other people to be able to get to where I am. And I see that's part of what you're doing and the association is doing. And like you've got bragging rights here. You've got that new tech center that opened up in Texas. Can you share a
Mhm.
little bit about that?
Sure. Actually, we have a couple of them. So, the Texas State Technical College, TSTC for short, is essentially Texas's answer to how do we give people trusted educational opportunities that don't look like a 4-year degree path, that are more trade related. So we have a fantastic new facility in Waco that I'm going to get to tour next month with my colleagues from around the state. We have a facility over here in Southwest Houston that's about to open that's going to be phenomenal for helping to teach things like masonry and carpentry. But the great thing about that model for Texas is that they don't get paid by the state unless those students not only get a job, but stay in that job and truly have a career path. So it's a really good ROI for us as Texas taxpayers to know that we're not just funding an educational program, we're truly funding the future for these students. And we don't pay unless we know we're getting the results that we as a community want.
Yeah, I'm kind of reluctant to say anything good about government because I keep hearing, and bear with me for a second here. I keep thinking of Reagan and his famous words, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And when you hear that phrase, you're supposed to run as far and fast as you can. Yet in Texas, again, getting back to Scott Norman in the interview, he said, we applied for $1 billion so we could build this tech center. And the government looked at us and said, no. But we'll give you 800 million instead. And I'm thinking, wow, that's leadership. I mean, that is leadership and realizing that we need to, it's like the logging industry. They cut trees, but then they replant at the same time. And
Mhm.
this is exactly the same. People are retiring. We've got to plant young blood to get them into the trade. This is one of those instances where I'll say, okay, government got it right.
And I think with our help, the industry was definitely engaged in the plan for use of those funds. We continue to be engaged. That member that I mentioned who called me up and gave me a hard time and became our workforce committee chair, he's actually on the board of regents for the Texas State Technical College system now because his commitment and his passion for workforce has led him to new heights and to be our advocate even more strongly on behalf of these programs.
Can we name names, Amy?
Sure, his name is Ron Rohrabacher, and he's phenomenal.
And what is he a builder by trade?
He was a builder for over 30 years and retired just a couple of years ago, and he still works in and around the industry, educating and helping train.
So let me see if I got this right. So he's a crusty old bastard that's giving you a hard time. He drinks the Kool-Aid, and now he's one of the greatest advocates for building and getting people in. Am I fair to say that?
Yes, and he's a former shop class teacher and coach, so he gets it from every angle of where we're trying to hit this opportunity for young people.
I'll have to reach out to him and give him a shout out. People like this that are actually making a contribution, we need to give them a shout out and let them be recognized, because I think that inspires other people to follow in their footsteps and realize we have to be giving back to make this grow.
And we truly couldn't do this. I am one person and I've never built a home myself. We have 19 plus school districts in our region. There is no way that we can do this without people like Ron and our many volunteers saying, I'm willing to give a little bit of time. I'm willing to give a little bit of expertise or a chance to a student to see my job site and really mentor them and train them up, or go speak to a classroom full of middle schoolers who may or may not want to pay attention. It really takes all of us giving a little bit to make sure we make that big impact.
Now, I may have missed this because I was daydreaming there for a second. Do you have a program that, so let's call it Amy's Bag of Toys. And obviously it's, the association's bag of toys, but you actually show up at it would be the high school. So I'm talking grade 9 and up with, here's what we got to inspire your kids to seek a path in the trades. Is that something that you have to offer? Or is it speakers that come in to try to get them motivated and open them up to the possibilities?
So we do a whole menu of options for our local school districts because we know some are very different than others. Some are rural, some have full-fledged manufacturing type opportunities for students to try out, and some it's very bare bones and we're just speaking to them. So our menu of options looks like everything from having a guest speaker to bringing students out to meet our members at an event, to helping them design projects that make sense, to taking out, squishy hard hats to encourage them to go look at career opportunities on our website. So it can be as much or as little as that school district is ready for, but we have many volunteers who are willing to go and make those efforts big or small.
Wait a minute. Squishy hard hat? What's this?
Yes, we have like, those little stress balls that you squeeze
Okay.
when you're stressed out? We have squishy hard hats that say ghba.org/careers on them, and we give them out at career fairs, and the kids throw
I
them at each other.
I just say liability was flashing on the screen. I had visions of you handing out SpongeBob helmets and saying, "Yeah, go onto the job site and play with the high-heeled construction boots that we're handing out too." My gosh. From where you're sitting right now, like, you get to interact with builders, you're interacting with politicians. Is there anything, if we look at the industry and people from the outside, is there anything that they're getting wrong? And I'm talking about the, day-to-day average person who's driving in their car, nothing to do with the industry. But when they think construction and they think about the industry, is there something that they're missing? Like the message, they're just not getting it. The story, there's something about it that doesn't make sense to them. And as a result, it's putting builders in a bad light.
Oh, I think absolutely people don't understand the impact even of small regulatory changes to the bottom line for potential homeowners. So we think of, oh, we're going to require a new curb cut, or we're going to have a new requirement for outlets to be placed differently. And that doesn't seem like a huge expense in the grand scheme of things, right? Maybe a couple $100 here, a few $100 there, but all of a sudden, we're truly pricing people out of the market. And the National Association of Home Builders does an annual study with Wells Fargo called the Priced Out Index. And Houston had the unfortunate moniker just a couple years ago of being the most priced out community in the country. And that's because every time we add $1,000 to the median home price, which now is much higher than it used to be in Houston, but it's in the upper 300s, low 400s, which is a little shocking to me. Every time we add $1,000 to that median home price, we are pricing out over 3,000 families from being able to purchase a home in the Houston area. That's just $1,000. So if we're thinking, "Oh, we're gonna require new insulation, we've got some new code changes, it'll cost a couple $1,000s per home." That's not just a nebulous couple $1,000s, that is literally families who aren't able to qualify for that 30-year mortgage and fulfill that dream of homeownership, or they're gonna have to move much farther out and get less than they would like for their family to live in as a result of those regulatory changes. And they really do have a compounding impact as you start adding more and more and more to the slate. And there are a lot of good ideas out there, and no one wants to build an unsafe home, and they aren't. But at some point, we get to a place where we've done all the good governance we can do, and the risk of people not having that permanent, stable housing becomes more than anything we could do to change or tweak a code.
I'm gonna have to do my homework because the number I've been using, and I swear I got it from Scott, was that for every $1,000 increase in home pricing, it was taking out 20,000 Texans from the market.
That's probably right, but the Houston Metro has is such a
Okay.
large part of that Texas number that we have an outsized portion in the Houston area that are priced out by those changes. So he's got
Yeah, I
the
forgot.
cumulative for the whole state.
Yeah, a note to self, it's all about Amy and her neighborhood. Okay.
We are the second or first largest home building market in the country every year, and we go back and forth with Dallas. So if that helps give any perspective on how many homes are being built just in Texas, it's it's a rather outsized number to the rest of the country because we know people wanna live here. They love our community.
Give me some numbers. So, how many builders do you represent? Like, how many are part of the association? And how would that be relative to other associations across the country?
Sure. So we're the second largest in the country if you only count builders and associate members, which are the two main kind of memberships. If you throw in affiliates, which are individual members, we get to number 5. But that means that we represent just over 1,550 member companies. So we consider everybody who works for a company to be a part of our membership and allow them to come to our events and meetings. Of those, about 400 of our members tell us that they build 25 homes or fewer a year. So, yes, we have the big volume builders that you've heard of and that you see no matter what big market you're in across the country. But the fact that we have over 400 members who build 25 homes or fewer mean that every change that gets made out there really doesn't just affect some corporate bottom line. It affects how everyday people are doing business here in Houston.
So, the big question, Amy, and this is going to give you the opportunity to shine. Why, as a builder, do I need to be part of an association? Why can't I just go about doing what I do? I build a house, I make some money. People hate me because I'm a greedy builder, and I wash, rinse, repeat.
Um, well, I think the reason to be a member of an association is the same reason that I join professional organizations, the same reason that I look to my colleagues across the country. It's that none of us are unique. We are all, at the end of the day, if you're a home builder, if you're running a business, looking to make sure our employees are taken care of, that our product is something that people want, and that we are able to take care of ourselves and our family. And when I share those challenges or opportunities with people who are doing what I'm doing, I'm better for it. When I'm able to crib off of someone else's paper, I am better for it. And I think here in Houston, we really see that oftentimes somebody who's new to the association will walk into the room and see a bunch of competitors. And the folks who have been there for any amount of time see those as their informal board of directors. They see the other people in that room not as somebody competing against them for a job, even though they all know who's bidding on the same types of jobs that they are. But they see them as a resource for, hey, my drywall guy didn't show up today. Who's your backup? Or have you ever encountered this issue with a homeowner? Or I opened up a wall and there was a raccoon in there. How have you dealt with that? You know, every day is a little bit different on a job site. And when you have somebody you can call up and it's not just on your shoulders, it makes that a little bit lighter.
Is that something that Houston Association advocates, like putting raccoons in the walls? Is that like a
We do
buyer's
not.
incentive? Like, what's the deal behind that?
We do not, but I always say remodelers are the people to call when something goes wrong because they've opened up a wall and seen something that you would never imagine in there.
Yeah, where the bodies are. So I just want to be able to use Amy's quote, cribbing somebody. Unpack that one. That's a new one for me.
Oh, cribbing off someone else's notes?
Yeah,
Copying off their paper, cheating.
right.
It feels like cheating when you're taking somebody else's experience and applying it to yourself sometimes, but to me, that's the only way we get better and better is when we know what pitfalls to avoid and when we can share what pitfalls we've had along the way.
You kids and your unique lingo. I don't know. I'm gonna push back on something you said, Amy. You said none of us are unique, and this is where I'm gonna put my hockey stick on the ice. We are all unique, and within the association, each one of the builders is unique. The problems that they have, though, I would argue, are universal,
That's
right?
very correct.
And what they're bringing to the table, my unique perspective, my idea, if you will, may be right, it may be wrong, or it may be kind of in the middle. But when meet somebody like an Amy or a Norman or any other of a multitude of builders that are part of that association, I now get to tap into that collective brain trust. And
Mhm.
in essence, one of the biggest, yet I think understated reasons about being in an association is it's this mastermind group of people that may be 2 steps or a mile ahead of you, but they're constantly looking back into the rearview mirror saying, "Okay, how can I help?"
Mhm.
I think the ones with sincere intent are the ones that are constantly looking in that rear view to say, "How can I help? And let's get others to catch up." They're not they're competitors in a sense, but that competition raises the benchmark, which is kind of forcing all builders to get better at what they do, which at the end of the day, meaning the home buyer is winning from this. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair, and I think I hear often from our members that they will say, "I knew I wasn't right for this job, but the personality of this homeowner, somebody who needed a remodeling job, etcetera, fits really well with this person who I've known for 20 years at GHBA." And so I've referred them over, and that happens very often.
We talked about that's one benefit. What would be a couple more? Why I should join as a builder?
Sure. So, from an education standpoint, we provide all kinds of continuing education all year long. We do 2 to 3 classes a month on everything from building science to geotechnical considerations for your foundation to roofing to building envelopes. We really run the gamut throughout the year so somebody can feel like they've had a full 101 in home building, whether they're new to the industry or whether they're looking to stay up on the latest trends. And that is something we offer not only to our members, but to non members as well. They pay more. We have a number of folks who that's their first interaction with the organization is they're trying to better themselves or trying to make a career change into our industry. The other things we do, I think, really well is advocate on behalf of our members to help try and keep home building affordable, help try and keep development regulations in a place that people can meet them and we also try to educate legislators and local policymakers on what works and what doesn't work when it comes to home building and development. We have a dedicated developers council here in Houston, and they meet on a monthly basis, and their board meets on a monthly basis. And they talk about all kinds of development regulations on a regular basis, as does our government affairs committee, which looks a little more broadly at all kinds of issues impacting builders, remodelers, developers, and the folks we work with on the trade side.
What about toys in the toy box? That you guys have standard forms that builders can use that's part of membership?
It is. So when somebody joins the Greater Houston Builders Association, they're a member of the Texas Association of Builders and the National Association of Home Builders. So they get to access the contracts that the state association, that Texas Association of Builders puts out. Those are edited every year as new court cases change things or new trends pop up in what we're seeing for needs between a home builder and their client. We also make changes related to legislative changes. Just a couple of years ago, the Texas Association of Builders was very successful in changing the statute of repose from
Yeah.
10 years to 6 years if you meet certain requirements, like having a written warranty. And those are all things that are provided in the state forms. And you here in Houston, we're a little unique because you automatically get access to those when you're a custom builder or remodeler as part of your membership dues. We go ahead and pay for those for you because we feel like it's so important to have that strong written relationship with your clients. Folks who join GHBA also get NAHB's benefits, which include things like the rebate program. You can pay for your membership with tires if you have a big enough order, but that really helps not only the member save some money, but we get a small portion of that rebate back to the Houston and to Texas and to the National Association to help keep the cost of dues lower and help support our operations.
At what point in the membership do they get the squishy hat?
When they go volunteer to talk to kids about careers.
Okay, just asking you because I can. What's one thing if we look I don't like using the word consumer because to me that portrays this big gelatinous mass on a sofa stuffing itself with potato chips, but let's say potential home buyers, okay? What is what you would think is one of the greatest disconnects or misconceptions that they have when it comes to the trades and construction?
I think especially for our trade partners, there's probably an assumption that they are just doing the same thing over and over and not being really thoughtful about how that product or service fits into the home. And that has not been my experience at all. People take pride in their work. They take pride in knowing that they put that set of cabinets that they, milled by hand into that home or helping design that perfect escape kind of primary suite for the homeowners. They know that people are gonna be building their families in those homes and having their friends over and entertaining, and they truly try to put themselves into that work every day. And I think, many people probably think that's just a paycheck thing for them, and that's not been my experience with the professionals I've worked with.
I was just interviewing a builder the other day, and he said the thing that burns his biscuits, and I love that expression, by the way, burns my biscuits, is that the perception is that we're greedy and the prices of homes are so high
Mm.
because of the profit that we make on those homes. And if truth be told, and correct me if I'm wrong here, they're working within about a 10 to 15% range when it comes to profitability. And according to the latest survey, Robert Dietz, who's like your chief
Mhm.
economist, said that for 2026, the number is around 26% of the cost of a home is related directly to governance, red tape, development costs. 26%.
Mhm. It's staggering because that is a number we can truly impact, right? We can pull back and say maybe a 30-year payback is the right payback on this efficiency product instead of trying to go to a 40 or a 50-year. Or we can say, maybe we can make this easier. Maybe we can make the distance between the roadway and the garage a little shorter, and that'll help somebody get more value out of their purchase. There are things that are truly low hanging fruit that we can grab onto that would help us substantially bring down the price of a home. Because if we're talking that it's about $400,000 for a new home construction in Houston. That means that $100,000 of that home is not a beautiful countertop. It's not a beautiful sink or bathtub. It's delays in inspection times, it's permitting costs, it's increased standards that may or may not apply to that home. That's truly something, if we can get our arms around it and encourage our policymakers to be with us on this, we can start to chip away at the cost of homeownership, which is, I think, shared across the aisle no matter what political bend you may have. I think we all share that desire to help families have stability and long term creation of wealth.
From where you're sitting right now, the technology that's entering the space is phenomenal. Like it's like the cell phone. It's only been around for what, 20 some odd years. And look at the evolution. Like
Mhm.
literally right now, you have the sum total of everything man has accumulated in your hand. In building right now, when it comes to technology, what are some of the things that light you up in terms of efficiencies, delivering a better product at a more affordable price? Is there anything that you've seen that just made you go, wow, this is really cool?
I'm really excited about some of what we're seeing from a AI use in planning and permitting. Going back to that conversation we just had about government regulation and delays being a huge part of that expense of home building, there is some real opportunity here to take away some of those tasks where we've seen a ton of turnover in local governments where it's really hard for them to keep a plan reviewer who's doing kind of the monotonous over and over plan review part of things. They get snatched up for an engineering firm or taken away by another private company. And all of that turnover causes great delay for our members. And I think what I've seen is that some of our members and others out there in the space are developing technology that can help cover some of those rote tasks of building line checking and provide more consistency in a faster, more efficient way for the local government, which means that I, as a builder, get my plans faster. I'm spending less time with those carrying costs for that home. And ultimately, the homeowner ends up reaping that benefit.
There is an author, his name's Douglas Adams. I'm just looking at his book, my bookcase here. And he wrote a trilogy called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I think Galaxy Universe, if you're familiar. So it's a trilogy, but it's 4 books.
Mhm.
And it begins with there's this guy, Arthur Dent, living in England, his little house. And then he looks out the window and he sees all these spaceships that are lined up, and these spaceships are these big monstrous bulldozers that are coming to destroy Earth. And he's trying to protect his little house, not realizing, the size of this. And the head alien, if you will, goes onto the loudspeaker, which is like the best crystal clearest stereo that can be heard right across the planet. And he says, before you start sniveling and complaining, we've had the, application has been on Alpha Centauri. It's been there for 300 years for you earthlings to go take a look at. You're too lazy, not my fault. Where I'm going with this, when he spoke into that microphone, everybody could hear it.
Mhm.
If I were to put that microphone on Amy's desk right now, 2 messages, what would you be telling builders right now? You've got their attention, everybody's listening. What would you tell governance right now? 2 separate messages, everybody's listening.
It might be the same message, actually. And it might be that the opportunity is great, but we've got to take hold of that opportunity. We still live in one of the hottest markets in the country when it comes to home building and new home sales. We have the opportunity to not just impact the Houston area, but to set the standard for the rest of the country when it comes to helping us build more affordably, when it comes to helping us build more efficiently, and really providing the housing that people want. And I think both builders have that opportunity to speak up to our elected officials, and elected officials have the opportunity to really understand what our builders are doing. So, is that fair? I totally ruined your premise by making it one message, I think.
Yeah, what a ripoff. Yeah, you cribbed my notes. There you go.
You're gonna start using that.
Yeah, probably. As I'm playing my banjo, I'll think of something. Let's do this. If that message, is there something from where you're sitting? Again, you've got this unique spot, and I'll go
Mhm.
back to the analogy of being in the control tower. Okay. Is there anything that you see with builders that you've been interacting with, be it on a state level, national level? They're just not getting it. There's that one thing, and again, if you could rattle them by the ears and say,
Mm.
"You're missing the big picture here." Is there something like that that you see day in and day out that just really frustrates you?
I think the importance of really speaking up when something is not working for them. Oftentimes, I see builders or I hear from builders, 6 months after they've had some situation that didn't work out for them, or they've been told something by an inspector that didn't sit right with them. And then when we go look into it, we say, oh, this maybe they need to be re educated because maybe this doesn't fit with what the city code or state law says. But I think oftentimes, as a builder, as a remodeler, as somebody in this industry, they're very capable and they just figure I'll power through it, I'll adjust, I'll be flexible, I'll adapt. And that's not always necessary. They have people fighting on their behalf day in and day out, whether it's with City Hall or with the national, with our Congress. And so, really, if you see something, say something if it doesn't feel right, or talk to your colleagues. We've had a recent spate of thefts of actual breakers inside breaker boxes. So think about the switch that gets flipped when your GFCI outlet pops, or when your power is overloaded or there's a bad storm. Those have been apparently a very hot items to steal lately. And until I started asking around after a member brought it up to me, I didn't realize how bad this problem has really gotten. And to the tune of many tens of thousands of dollars being spent by some of our members on a regular basis just to replace those while a home is under construction. And so once I started asking, I realized it was a much bigger problem than we thought. And so our government affairs team went to work contacting our local sheriff and constable's offices. And now we're setting up a bit of a task force to get together and meet on this issue. But I think oftentimes people just suffer in silence and think that nobody's in their corner.
They think it's just the cost of doing business, and
Mhm.
it kind of speaks to the resilience or the character of builders that are out there. They're just used to
Good.
being like the captain of their own ship, and it's up to them. And this is where you come in as an association. You're not by yourself. You're not alone.
We are for them, we are by them, we are of them. So we are meant to be here as a support. And I want to mention one thing, Michael, if you don't mind. We have a new offering, and I think at some point you're going to talk to Chris Bolio, and this goes along with his desire to really ensure that our members know that they're not alone, not only when it comes to issues that impact their bottom line, but when it comes to issues that impact their mental health. We've started doing a monthly coffee and conversation session that we're calling In Good Company. And it is not about networking. It is not about handing out your business card, but it's about sharing the load and being of support to each other in the industry and what's impacting you personally and professionally. Because I think, as you mentioned, oftentimes the resiliency of our builders and our remodelers and our company owners leads people to think that they have to have all the answers or that they need to bear that load completely alone. And oftentimes it's a one or two person shop or very small team, and they may not have that counterpart to talk with. So, beyond just best practices in building, we're trying to bring that best practice in being able to be vulnerable with your colleagues and your industry friends and try and help build that community of support beyond just the business support that we provide.
I've had the pleasure of doing this podcast for, excuse me, almost 2 years now. Sound Capital reached out, and they're a private capital firm, and their specialty is ground up funding, ground up construction is what they do. and they're the ones that keep the lights on for this podcast. And it's given me an opportunity to meet people like yourself. I think we're up to about 70 interviews so far. And of the builders that I've interviewed, the plumb line, the common line, is they've all experienced some form of hardship. And if they've been in the business long enough, 2008, 2009
Mhm.
is the common one. When they talk about some of them were in the fetal position, they didn't even want to get out of bed.
Mhm.
And they were looking into the abyss, thinking, how did I get here? My family is looking at me, employers are looking at me. The pressure, sheer pressure of everything on their shoulders. And not to get religious, but the majority of them had either an epiphany or turned to a higher power, which
Mhm.
I just found it so fascinating. The resilience of acknowledging something else and that pulled them through, right? And to your point about what Chris is doing, I was astonished when I first heard. I think the stat is suicide within trades and construction ranks second to dentistry. And everybody
Oh.
hates dentists because the pain associated with it. But no, I'm serious.
Yeah,
Dentists have
no.
this, you don't put your hand up, oh, I'm going in there, doodly doo. I feel good about myself. I want to experience pain. But that the dentist, in essence, is
Mhm.
doing that. Construction is right behind that. And to me, that's fascinating, but at the same time, it's so depressing that we need to get that message out to the builders that guys, gals, you're not alone.
Well, and frankly, we have a lot of people working with their hands, working on job sites who may injure themselves. And we see that not just suicide, but the threat of addiction is higher and the incidence is higher in people who work in construction than in most other types of professions. And part of that's you hurt yourself on the job, but you got to get back to work and support your family. That's certainly something that we talk about openly and honestly in this place, and I don't think that's a conversation that our industry would have had necessarily 10 years, 20 years ago. I think there's a new openness to that and to talking about hardship, and maybe that's where we need to be headed, not just as an organization, but as a community to help embrace the opportunity for us to be more connected to each other.
I want to give you the opportunity to look back at your career so far, your involvement with the association. And I'm not saying this is going to go on forever. They're going to have to carry you out because you're not going to give away the reins, especially the squishy helmet and the corresponding gavel. Is there any one particular thing that you've had your fingerprints on that you say, I did that? And I don't mean that selfishly, but I did. If Amy wasn't hatched and never made it to Houston, this thing would have never become manifest. And that when you think back on it, it just lights you up. Is there any one thing that comes to mind? There's probably hundreds, but what would be the one that you look back on and say, man,
Well, I'm a big believer in getting everybody's hands on the knife. To quote a former colleague of mine, like we've got to have everybody's buy-in to make sure something happens. So I think that's where I've put my fingerprints on things too. Is that we've worked collaboratively as an organization through a few things that really needed shifting. And it wasn't my idea that they needed shifting. These were conversations I was having over and over with several members. And it was, you know, we really need to update our governance documents for all of our various councils and divisions to give everyone a more consistent membership experience and make sure that when you walk in the door for our remodelers council or for our professional women in building or for our Bay Area Builders Association, you're having substantially the same experience that you're having across town if it's a GHBA event. And so we did that, and that led to a whole focus on how do we work better together across our siloed little clubs within the organization. How do we make sure that the developers are talking with our Northern County Builders Group? How do we make sure that our professional women in building are being represented at our government affairs committee meetings? And so I think that collaborative focus is probably the biggest hallmark of of my time here so far, but it's really taken the buy-in of hundreds of our members who have been part of those task forces and committees and workshops to keep nudging us in the direction I think we're headed.
I gotta ask, like, what kind of organization are you running there where everybody's hand has to be on the knife? Like, I've never heard that before.
I mean, it's associations are big, hairy, difficult animals to corral sometimes, and the way we do that is by having more voices in the room.
The one thing I've discovered about Texans, it was not necessarily in this order, but God, horses, and guns, and don't get in between either one. Now I got to add sharp, pointy things because of Amy. Thank you for that.
I mean, we do have a clay shoot every year, so that feeds into your gun 'cause part of things.
Yeah, I just knock over coffee cups. I don't need a gun for that. That's how tough we are. Amy, I want to do something. It's called rapid fire. Rapid fire,
Okay.
and we're kind of, as Mike Rowe would say, I can see the airport and the landing gear is coming down. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Don't overthink this. First thing that pops into your brain, finish off the sentence. Builders get themselves in trouble when they,
Stay in their own head,
the fastest way municipalities accidentally make housing less affordable is.
not talking to anyone.
Hmm. The best builders usually have this one thing in common.
Openness,
If a builder calls you in panic mode, odds are they're struggling with.
sales,
5 years from now, builders who win will be the ones who.
can adapt.
Okay. On a more personal note here, lane change. When I finally get that rare hour to myself, and I know you've got your feet up most of the time, but when you get that 1 hour to yourself, what is it that Amy loves to do to recharge?
I spend time with my kids,
Nice. That one place that is Amy's happy place.
at home with an audiobook on my earphones.
Okay. Nice segue to this one. A book, a movie, or a quote that stayed with me longer than I thought.
I keep thinking about the book that I read a couple years ago, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And it uses that quote from Macbeth about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But it just really spoke to me about where we are as a society. And it's a fiction work, but it mentioned in there a very specific pattern or design that had been done called the strawberry thief. And now that wallpaper design is what I have in my office. And it reminds me all the time of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
The prequel is coming out yesterday, yesterday, yesterday. I don't know if you've seen that, but last one, Amy, last one. What a thoughtful gift. As I unwrapped the package, to my delight, I found a
Chocolate.
chocolate. Okay. Amy, this has been fun. I've got one more for you. And something that's not going to happen for years and years and years and years and years, exponentially years and years and years. But I love this question. One morning you wake up and you're dead, and you're thinking, well, okay, I can't get any worse than this. And then you realize that you're standing at heaven's gate and you look down the road and there's a whole bunch of people that you know, and you're kind of giggling of what the hell are they doing here? Emphasis on hell. And then you see St. Peter points at you and to come over here. And you're standing beside St. Peter and he's holding an iPad and he's scrolling through, and you realize he's going through your life story and he's playing little vignettes, and some are making him smile, some are kind of making him frown. And then he looks at you, Amy, and he says, not today. Amy, not today. What's the one thing that you haven't done yet that St. Peter's saying, not today?
I mean, selfishly, it's probably traveling all the places. I want to see all of the great monuments of the world. I want to see the pyramids. But I think,
Squishy.
yeah, take a squishy.
I was going to say squishy helmets all. Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I hope I endeavor to live my life without regret. And if it's my time, it's my time. But I really do enjoy being with my family and spending time with my kiddos. And they're at a stage where they are on the precipice of greatness, I hope, not disaster. I've got a 17-year-old going into his senior year of high school. And So it's probably that, spending more time with them always.
Wow. Aimee, this has been a joy. Is there anything you want to wrap up that we've missed?
I don't think I talked at all about our charitable opportunities, but I would love for you to link those in the notes because that really ties into everything we do is giving back to the larger Houston community through Homemade and through Operation Finally Home and giving our members the opportunity to do more together than they could ever do on their own.
So, FYI to the people that are listening in, or if you want to crib my notes, there will be corresponding show notes to this interview. And Aimee, any links that you want to add to that, they'll be able to download and get. Thank you so much. I know how busy you are. I really appreciate you taking time out today. I look forward to seeing you at Sunbelt. That's coming up soon.
And you're gonna ride a mechanical bull or do something equally Texasy, I hope, at that?
No, I'm going to bring a knife, and all my friends will get. We're going to carve up that bull, Aimee. Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you on the Riverwalk with that.
Have a great day, Aimee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Builder Straight Talk. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. Until next time, keep building smarter. This episode is made possible by our parent company, Sound Capital, funding built for builders.